Hi guys, this is your modern day spokesperson and welcome to my channel. If it's your first time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And if you are subscribed already, welcome back. Now, before we start with the video, I'd like to give out a shout out to Tandim Somi. Guys, if you want me to give you a shout out on my next video, please leave a comment on the comment section. Okay, now as promised on my last video, I said we're going to be doing leases. Today we're going to focus on finance leases from the perspective of the lessee, the one who obtains the right of use. Now, guys, I'm going to make some assumptions here. I'm going to assume that you know the difference between a lessor and a lessee, and the difference between a financial lease and an operating lease. If you don't really understand the two, please go and check out my previous videos. I made the distinctions there. So now let's jump into it straight away now. So this is a question I prepared for you guys. My LTD entered into a contract with Fellow People Ltd on the 1st of January 2020, whereby Fellow People Ltd will lease a quarantine building for a period of 8 years, right? The fair value of the building was 167 million at 1 January 2020. The installment amount is 145,000 payable in arrears. So this one is very important, guys, because sometimes you will get a one that says payable at the beginning. So that means on your calculator you'd have to change the settings beginning. But on a default, your calculator will always assume that you are calculating in arrears. The interest implicit in the lease is 13%. Ownership of the building will transfer to Fellow People Ltd at the conclusion of the lease term. Now, this one must signal to you that we are dealing with a finance lease here, right? Because the ownership will transfer to the lessee at the end of the period. The building has a useful life of 10 years, and it is the company's policy to depreciate the building over its useful life on a straight line basis. Right? Okay, guys, now that you've got your important information, you know the the fair value of the building, you know the period of the lease, you know the interest implicit, you know that ownership is going to transfer, and you also have your useful life of the building and the policy in which the company or the lessor is going to use to depreciate the asset, right? So you can pause here and go and write your givens on the next page, and then we can continue. Right, okay. So our first question is name 3 types of leases. 3 types of leases. We've got your finance lease. This is the one that we have here because ownership is transferring to the lessor at the end of the lease period. We have an operating lease, which is generally classified by the asset going back to the lessor at the end of the period. And there is also this one, which causes a bit of confusion. Finance lease for a manufacturing or dealer company. Or dealer lessor. So these are lessors that either manufacture or deal in inventory, right? Let's say for a car dealership, the cars that it sells will be its inventory, and for a manufacturer, obviously, if they're manufacturing products there, then it's going to be a manufacturer. So any other type of lessor that falls beyond that scope will be a finance lease, like financial services. That's your general lessor, right? Now, our second question says, indicate with reasons whether my LTD should classify the lease as an operating or a finance lease. Okay, these are some of the few questions that you have to ask yourself, but not limited to this one. So you have to ask yourself, is ownership transferred to the lessee at the end of the period or the lease term? Yes. Is the lease term a major part of the useful life of the asset? And in this case, it's yes, because the asset, if we can go back, has a useful life of 10 years and the lease period is 8, so this is the majority. So we can safely conclude that it's a finance lease. There are also other reasons that you can give, but I'll give you the chance to go and look at those ones. But these are just, the basic ones which can quickly indicate to you. Now for the next question, our next question says, calculate the right of use and the right of use and the lease liability of Fellow People Ltd. Now, guys, this is very important, right? We should know that when we are calculating a right of use, we are always calculating it from the perspective of the borrower, in this case, the lessee, which is which is a Fellow People Ltd. So let's not get that confused. If the question demands you to give a right of use, so this is where we start. You need to this is your first step. Very easy steps. Calculate the interest rate implicit with the lease. Fortunately, in our case, it has been given at 13% if you go and look at your information. Now, the second thing that we calculate is the present value of the lease liability, right? Using the given interest rate, the implicit interest rate. So now, guys, as I would always advise with this type of calculations, when you get your calculator on, you first have to clear memory so that previous calculations don't interfere with your current calculation. So now we were given our number of years paid annually, so that's N. We are also given our payments at 145,000 PMT. Our future value here is 0, simply because there is no residual value which has been guaranteed here. And our implicit is 13%. And then you go IY. We have to compute that, and we get our present value for the lease. You can ignore the negative. So our present value is 695,822. So our lease liability goes like this. Present value of lease liability at inception of the lease, as we calculated, is 695,822, and then minus payments made on or before commencement date. Now, these are payments that could have been made during a period before which the lease has commenced. So we do not get any information about any payments that were made before commencement date, right? And then that means we have a blank there. Present value of lease payments not paid at lease commencement still remains at 695,822 because nothing has really changed there. Now, the question asked for us to look at the calculation of right of use asset. In this case, it is a quarantine building. It's our PPE. Initial measurement of, this is a format that you need to be familiar with, guys. Initial measurement of lease liability, still the 695,822. Initial direct costs, it's a blank because we did not incur any legal fees or commission fees when we were negotiating, so we don't have any of that. Plus lease payments made at or before commencement date, less any incentives, nothing of the sort. So our right of use still remains at 695,822. These are the only things that can affect your right of use. So that's our right of use right there. So usually you would be you'll be asked to calculate your right of use while making notes to the annual financial statements. So this is just a way to show you how to look at that. And part 2 will definitely go a bit deeper and get a more complex example. But if guys, there's something that you don't understand here, please leave a comment on the comment section. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if there's anything you don't understand, I'm repeating this again, this is your channel, it's for you. Just give me a notification in the comment section and I will attend to that. And our final question requires us to prepare journal entries in accounting records of Fellow People Ltd for the year ended 31 December 2020. Now, I need to emphasize the point again that journals are part of accounting at any level. So guys, you need to practice these ones, and they are actually very easy because you're just extracting information from your calculations and just posting them there on your journals. It's really a fun exercise if you ask my opinion, and let's get to it. The one advice I can give you on journals is that it has to follow a logical flow. So you have to start at the beginning of the period and put in every bit of information that occurred throughout the year up until the year end. So at the beginning of the year, 1st January, we had right of use asset, the building, at 695,822. That was our lease liability credited. That was on the 1st. Now, after that, nothing happened up until the year end when we have our depreciation, accumulated depreciation, you credit, and your depreciation you debit to the profit and loss. You accumulated, you credit to the statement of financial position. Right? So now this one is also an important fact here, right? So when the asset is going to transfer from the lessor to the lessee, we are going to use the useful life of the asset to depreciate the asset. But if, let's say, this asset was not going to transfer ownership, it was going to return back to the original owner, then that means we were going to use the shorter of the useful life and the lease period. That means we were going to use 8 years. So it's a very, very important fact to know that if ownership is transferring to the lessee, we're going to depreciate the asset over its useful life. If it's not, then we're going to use the lease term, right? And from your financial calculator, if you do your amortization, this is where you're going to find your financial costs, where we debit your financial cost to the statement of profit and loss and your lease liability to the statement of financial position. Now, this one is quite easy because if you have calculator like this, you just go and do your amortization, and you see, interest. You see on the amortization, it's 90456. I just rounded it to the nearest 10, that's why I have a 7 there. Right. So this is basically information that you've actually calculated throughout the period, and you just have to post it, and that's very simple. And last but not least, you've got your lease liability, which is your installments. Your liability that you have to be paying is 145,000. You debit that. Obviously the bank has to reduce by the same amount because that's what's leaving your pockets. So now guys, we've come to the end of the video. If there is anything that you might not understand, please don't forget to leave a comment on the comment section. Leave a thumbs up if you like the video, and watch me on the next video. Thank you for watching. Nda.